Okay, so if you have a look up here, I thought I'd just go through the ebooks task. So, and I'll also show you some sample answers that were provided by the examiners. Okay. So the first thing is looking at the background information. Okay. Page 12 and 13 contain the transcript of a speech. Okay. So, for a speech, we use speaker or presenter. We don't use author or reader. Okay? So that's the first thing. When you check your own task, have you used reader and author? Okay? If it's a written article, then we use author and reader. Okay? For the audience, you can use listener or audience. Okay? So we need to make sure that if we're using generic words, we've got speaker, presenter, listener, audience. By Mrs. Elliot. That one is easy because you know straight away it's a woman, so you can use she and her because you get given the title, Mrs. Okay? Now, the fact that she has good responses, always acknowledge this context. Okay? Her position as a teacher librarian is important because it gives her a sense of authority to speak about literary matters. It gives her the authority and knowledge, expertise to talk about books. Okay? And the audience included teachers, librarians, and senior school students. So that's who she's speaking to. Okay? And that's also important. When you talk about the effect on the audience, you're looking at how are teachers, librarians, and students, who is she appealing to? Yes? When you get this, always make a note of what you can find about the position, the type of article, whether it's a speech, it's a radio interview. If it's a radio interview, you've got speaker, presenter, okay, or it's some form of, on paper article, and you can use writer, and you can still use audience, by the way. Reader, you can also use audience over here. Okay. Now, as we read this, and in your note form summaries, hopefully you were able to at least get the main contention. Okay. And the contention of this piece is that ebooks are good, but we can't lose paper books. If you only had half of that, if you only had ebooks are good, then you only had half. Some people even seem to have ebooks are bad and seeing about how the presenter is trying to convince the audience that ebooks are bad because they, and all of the ways that they are bad, because, there were things in there. We talked about the fact that ebooks had unhealthy because of the screen time and the gap between the rich and poor, okay? But those were not intended to show that ebooks are bad, that ebooks shouldn't be used. They were intended to show why we must also keep paper books. So we needed to really work out, why is she putting this in here? What's the whole purpose? And if you came back to this contention that we can't lose paper books, the whole reason why she puts in the stuff about the problems with ebooks is not intended to show that we shouldn't have ebooks. It's intended to show that there is value in keeping paper books also. Yes? Okay, that's really important for us to understand. When we look at something we have to analyse, we need to work out sort of main ideas, remember that we're looking for impressions. And when we're talking about impressions, it's really the biggest type of impression you can look at is, are we getting a positive or negative impression, and why? Okay. So what is the focus, what is the point of having a positive or negative impression? Okay. And so here, enthusiastic about new technology. We've got verbs, words we can choose to help us analyse and work out what sort of impression it is. We have rushed out to buy an e-reading device, which is a good thing. I would be using that as evidence as well to establish her enthusiastic tone about ebooks. So remember, tone is something I'm not sure that many people identify. You don't have to, but it helps. Inside one article, there might be 2 or 3 different tones. You might have a really positive tone about certain things and a negative tone or an attacking tone about others. So we might have a really, a enthusiastic tone when describing gardening as a pastime, and an attacking tone when talking about the people who want to turn it into a park, a car park. Okay, so we may have many different tones in there. Okay? Identifying tone and giving reasons for the tone. So we have an enthusiastic tone when discussing ebooks. We can see this by the fact that she rushed out to buy an e-reading device, which shows her eagerness to use e-readers. Yeah? Okay. Easier to get, cheaper to own, more convenient to carry. So we have lists of positive, spelling mistake there. Lists of positive, now you could write positive qualities, or you could write, instead of qualities, you could write attributes, if that's a new word for some of you. List of positive attributes of ebooks. Okay. She establishes herself as a supporter of ebooks in order to have credibility when she appeals not to lose paper books. She establishes herself as somebody that is modern and positive about technology, so that when she appeals that printed books are good, she is not doing it because she doesn't like technology. Okay. It gives her appeal to keep printed books credibility because she's not doing it because of bias. Okay. Does that make sense? So the whole reason for her being so positive about ebooks is to show that she is balanced, she is unbiased. So when she appeals to keep printed books, the audience will see her as somebody that has done so from analysing and making a logical decision, a reasoned decision, not simply because she is anti-technology. Okay. Now this one here, a slide from the presentation. Out of this class, I think only one person actually analysed this slide. Please remember, if you do not mention the picture at all, the highest mark, even if you you have a perfect essay, is 5 out of 10. Because in the descriptions, 6 out of 10 says analyses written and visual language. Okay? So, you must analyse the picture. Now this one really shows the contrast between the huge pile of textbooks versus the small e-reader. So this is intended to appeal to readers to understand that the burden, and this is a word that's used here, the terrible burden of great book textbooks. This refers directly to below it. So the comparison between the weight of the textbooks versus the lightness of the e-book here. Okay. Does that make sense? So you needed to link this point with this picture. Okay. That this point, so we've got that she identifies that great big textbooks, in a quote, yeah, can be a terrible burden of printed books, but e-books can help make this problem alleviated or go away. This point is reinforced in the slide from the presentation, which shows a young student leaning up against a large pile of books taller than them compared to the small light e-reader that she is carrying. The contrast between the pile of printed books and the single e-reader shows the benefits of e-readers in that they are light, which appeals to people to see the benefits of e-readers. Yes? Got it? Okay. So she says, my enthusiasm extends to ebooks. She really begins with this enthusiastic tone about ebooks. Okay? She loves the brightness settings and font size. Okay? And they can contain more than printed books. So she lists all of the benefits of ebooks to establish herself as somebody that enjoys this type of reading. Therefore, when she calls for and expresses her worry about losing printed books, she has credibility. Okay? And so then we would move to the first paragraph. Ideally, you would have written something about the benefits of ebooks and her establishing herself as credible and using some quotes from here. Enthusiastic, positive, admiring tone when talking about ebooks. Then we can have 2 paragraphs perhaps on the rest of it. I would certainly say one paragraph is discussing the negatives of ebooks and the, she's doing that. So by discussing the things to worry about ebooks, she's establishing that printed books have immense value. Okay? And so the reason that she is talking about the problems of ebooks is to appeal to us to see printed books as an equally important alternative. So we have some things here you need to say. She's listing some problems of ebooks also. Yes? And some quotes you can use. Okay? Disturbing. Okay? Passively consuming. Okay? Dead as dinosaurs. Okay, there's good quotes to use. Okay. Hang on. Okay. Endless hours of exposure to screens. Okay. Appealing to worry, appealing to parents about their look at screens. Health. Right. And then the final, you could also do here, ebooks can disappear. Okay, and this, if okay, that links to this image here. Okay, so buying a book, and it's showing the irony that, and emphasizing the fact that printed books don't disappear. Okay, and then ultimately appeal to preserve printed books. Okay, appeal to preserve printed books. Because it's important, because this knowledge cannot be lost. And this is down at the bottom here. The important things are not lost. Okay. And so to do this well, you must have quotes. You must identify tone in paragraphs, not in the whole essay. Okay, I wouldn't say this speech has a whole tone, but when talking about ebooks, there's a different tone. There's a positive tone, and then there's a slightly concerned tone here. Okay, by saying, is there anything to worry about? I'm worried about this. We have a concerned tone, and then we have this appealing tone at the end. Okay, make sense? So, what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to come into the content library, language analysis. The bottom one, I've got ebooks, and I've actually put the PDF there. I've got the 2 note form summary answers that you can see. Okay. And then I've also got the 2 articles. I'd like you to read them, and then we'll just quickly discuss them for the last few minutes of class. Okay, so take some time now to go through that and have a read of those 2 language analysis essays and the note form summaries. Okay.